Hey, thanks for sending in the newest version of your shot here. So let's have a look. Looking cool. Good job on those notes from last time. So this time I thought it might be better if I did the notes beforehand. So I've got a bunch of notes here for you. And that way I could think about it a bit more without recording myself doing it and maybe get some better notes. I think that might be the way I do things moving forward. As I say, still relatively new to these workshops and not just doing it on a call. So I think this will be a faster way of doing it. So the video will be quicker. I'll just be able to explain all these notes. And you'll be able to intake them quicker and understand them, hopefully. Cool. So the very first note I've got here is right now, I'll turn off the drawings. Right now, you go back for this anticipation onto this leg, which is cool. But then when you come up, you kind of just come up in a straight line there in the body. And it isn't in an arc at all. So what I'm suggesting is you go into this anticipation and then here you do a bit more of an arc, a smaller arc in the body. So you go into the anticipation and then you go down up. So you get like an arc in that push off. Because at the moment it doesn't feel like that, like we're seeing that at the moment. I think that's going to feel a lot nicer. Cool. Next thing. So this is a bigger note, actually. I took a bit of thought about it. And I think here what's happening is you have this cool clash. Ding. And then you have this moment where they stand up. And they both kind of stand there for a little bit and then turn and swing. And I honestly think what will work best is if you go straight from this into this, right? So let's just draw, just so that I can flick between these drawings and you can see what I mean. I think this is going to help with the rhythm of the shot and it feeling powerful. At the moment, there's kind of an awkward beat in there, which I think is from the live action reference, but I think taking that out is going to speed things up and make it a lot nicer. So yeah, I'd get rid of this beat in the middle. You go straight from here, from the down of the block, and you go straight from that into a turn attack. So you're just going to break down between here and here, right? So this will be a lot faster. I don't know if maybe you get the arm in here so you can see that sword, but let's think about it. Shing. Yeah, maybe that'll work, having that arm in a cool silhouette, like a bit up behind so you can see the arm and the sword. Cool. So there's that note. Here, I gave a note where this arm has a really big spacing on this frame. I'm tracking, these lines that I've drawn, but then it kind of slows down significantly and then does a bit of speeding up. So it's really just tracking this spacing. And I think what you can do is just get into this pose a bit faster. So your spacing is faster getting into this pose and you have a little bit longer to hold in it before you do the swing. Cool. The next thing is I think maybe we're at the stage now where we can start adding some smears and some sword swipey smears. If you look at a lot of animations, like combat animation stuff from like games reels and this kind of stuff, you often see these. Basically what you do is you can create like a plane and you just like line up the plane on one frame, hide it on, hide it off, and make the plane the color of the sword. And then you can shape the plane in Maya, just model it to make some of these shapes for like this one frame. And then here, so I'm thinking you can get rid of this one in the middle. You can do this really big spacing on one frame, get rid of the one in the middle, go to this really big spacing here, and then really be easing in. So you have the smear through this frame and maybe a tiny bit here whilst it's easing in. Like you have a tiny bit of that to show where it's come from and where it's going. But only a slight amount following that arc. And I think here, yeah, that would be good for that. Here, I think you can kind of hold back the sword a little bit longer and then swipe through. And here you kind of have this weird bit where it kind of gets stuck in the middle. I think you can just really quickly go from here, go through. This frame should be kind of the ease in frame, right? At the moment, it's just kind of holding in the middle, whereas it should feel like a swipe. It has like a little hitch in it. At the end, we had that resistance hitch, which I think is good because there was literal body resistance when he was cutting through. I think what you did there was great. But here, I don't think we need that. I think we can just swipe through because we're missing. So that spacing there can be tightened up a bit. Cool. Here's some, here's a smaller one. So the wrist here, I'm tracking this black dot here. You have this big spacing, and then you kind of have a smaller spacing here. I turn on the ghosting, you can see. So if I go to the middle one, ignore the green one. We're going from that black one, from that red one, to this black one to that green one, if you see the spacing is kind of getting bigger and then getting smaller, and then it gets bigger again on this frame. So I would pull this back, so we're dragging the arm a bit more. So where I put this green drawing, I would pull it back maybe somewhere in here, so it's a smaller spacing, and then a bigger spacing, and then an even bigger spacing for the impact, you know, and that will help with the feeling of this. Cool. This is a bigger section of notes here, which I thought of. I think this step isn't working here. His weight isn't over his foot enough for this leg to come off the ground. And as such, I think we need to change kind of how we're handling this. And I think instead what you can do is you can lead with the body, the hips push through, the body drags and then catches up. So instead of doing the reversal as much, we can kind of just go down and then come up into our hit. Maybe there's a tiny bit of reversal before the down, but I think this will simplify it. So we don't need to come up as much for this part in here. We can very much just, I got this drawn. I do have this drawn. So it's the, I've got too many drawings here. Let me turn this down so we can draw in between maybe and see. Cool, we're going here to here. So maybe when we get to here, we can be slightly over the head, but right now your head spacing is too big. So I would try and turn this down so it has less distance to go for this part. So you lead with the hips, maybe then you can come up when this weight is on here. And then you can step through, you know, because the weight is now on this back leg. And then maybe he's a bit further back here as well, actually. Whoops. So you have a slight reversal here, but it's nowhere near as big as what you've got, and it's kind of within this move, and it'll keep the head nice and steady, feeling good, which will be good, because that's something I think is kind of feeling a bit too active, like the head is moving around too much for how much you would actually move it around for that moment. Cool. So that's one note. So this would be your reversal in here where you have the anticipation. So it's only a slight reversal, and then hit. Cool. This one, I think the big issue with the current, whoops, get me out of there. The big issue with the current thing is that your head spacing kind of goes back on itself here and then forward on itself here. And it does feel a bit strange. I think what will solve this is if you step further here, so you come closer to the other guy. And that way your head has more, when you come up here, we can already be further forward. Let's just do it on the same drawings. So we're going from this, boom, 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 boom. Our head is here. We're going to go up to this. Oops. So our head is here. So we probably want the head to not really come back so much, right? So we're minimalizing that arc. We're going to have a slight arc. But if we get a bit further forward in our step, so we're traveling further, right? We travel further, then our then our head arc, we've got too many drawings going on, but our head arc doesn't have to be as back and forth. It doesn't have to go up and back again. It can just kind of go up and down, right? So that's, and they'll be close together, which will feel cool, I think, for this moment. Yeah, here, this frame feels really good. Like you can see this really clearly. But as you get to this settle, I think we kind of lose a bit of this as it gets foreshortened and rotated towards camera. So I would keep it rotated around to the side a bit, to be side on a bit more here, so you can see that and it's a bit clearer. Cool. I think this red guy we're back onto now. This bit here I think needs a bit of anticipation. So I would, you're down this way. You need to come back onto this leg before you push off it, right? So the moment you just kind of push off it, I think you need to come back onto the leg and then push off it. So there needs to be a slight mini beat in here, where you come back onto this leg, and then push off it. I think during this push off, you can lead a bit more with this leg. So there's a bit more lead and follow in the steps. So you get a bit more lead with this leg. That's going to feel good. And here, I think when you do the push off, you can get a tiny bit of lead and follow where the hips come through as the body's straightening up and then the body goes down again, right? So the hips, so you're jumping, you're going this way, you're jumping. So you get this tiny bit of lead where the bottom, as you come up, kind of takes over, right? A little bit of that in this jump. At the moment, it feels very just all the stuff together. So instead, if you could have a tiny bit of I'll try and be a bit more silhouetted here. So a tiny bit of the hips come through, which straightens up. The head doesn't ever go back on itself, but the head has its own arc, but the hips get a little bit of lead in there. Hopefully that's clear. Cool, that's that note. Here, I think your head is coming too far back here. And then I think here you're feeling off balance. So to solve both of those things, when you do this push-up, I would have the hips further forward in space here, so that your head can be further forward as well, a little bit. So the hips further forward in this direction. So, you know, by this point, we're not completely off balance, we're further forward. Then we come down into this anticipation. Yeah, stuff that you've already got, which is cool. I won't draw too much on here. I think that's gonna help. That's gonna feel nicer. This guy, I think this bit that comes down maybe isn't working so much. Maybe that's a bad note for me. I don't know. I think maybe if we got that arc a bit straighter, would be good. Here, there's a little bit of spacing stuff where the hand kind of does this bigger spacing. We do a huge spacing on here. We do a smaller spacing here. And then the spacing kind of hits, like I'm tracking the hand here. So the hand does a bigger spacing, then it kind of gets stuck, then it pops back. So yeah, you just need to clean that up so the hand continues to flow through in one clean arc. And that's going to feel good. Cool. Yeah, here there's a bit of weirdness in the elbow where the elbow gets tucked in and then it goes out. Simply could be cool if you just pull the elbow up for this. And here it'd be cool if we could see the elbow a bit earlier so we knew it was leading. Right now it's down. Keep it up. All right, and you keep it bent, bend. And I want to keep the sword overlapping the body silhouette here because it feels a bit strange that it's not. At the moment it's kind of under, which feels a bit strange. Or it's kind of through his body or even. So you need to craft that frame. And then you go from this really strong bend into a straight for that impact. And maybe that's another moment where you could add a bit of a smear for one frame. Or maybe a slight bit of two frames with a tiny bit of like that plane coming in here. And here, your arms settle. This part, when it does a settle, it kind of just goes like this and stops. It'd be cool if it did like a slight arc. So if you track the wrist, so this is FK, you know, like you're rotating from down here, but what you're doing is you're getting a slight arc in the settle. I think that's going to be good. Cool. Now this bit, I think for this, after he gets cut, if he was a bit further forward, so, you know, this first step was a bit further forward to allow for that. So this step was a bit further. Oh, whoops, I'm drawing with the wrong thing. This step was a bit further forward, right? Now we can get them a bit further apart. And I think during this part where this second step comes in, I think if we did that as a full step, so instead of just like a step which puts the ankles in line with each other, this step that you're doing here, you have come all the way through to over here, to past his body. So instead of it just lining up, we're going for a full other step and you have a bit of a stumble with it. So he gets hit and then he steps through and has a bit of a stumble, kind of like what you had before with this stumbling, which feels really nice. Here, I feel like there's kind of something lacking in this section. And I think what will help with that is if you get that step through, so that you can have that step through and catch his weight. And then he steps back to try and catch it the other way like you already have here. So everything from here is going to be similar, apart from the, you know, the fact that we're going to be starting further forward. Him being further forward for this whole section also helps because we get a bigger, clearer negative space between the two of them and clearer silhouettes. And that's also going to help with things like here where they're overlapping, which is super, you don't really want to do. Here they're overlapping, tangenting. Sometimes you hear that being called. Cool. So everything will just be further over to screen left for that whole section. Here, I think some of this impact doesn't feel like doesn't feel great, and part of that is you have the hit. The hit is on this frame, and then I think you need a bit of a spine reversal like pretty quickly. So what I've done in this drawing is you have the hit, you have the chest and the head dragging, and then they start to catch up here. And that's where, you know, the body also can come back in space as this comes forward in space. The other thing here I've tried to do is break up these legs. So maybe during this part where this leg kicks off, You can get this leg a bit higher, and you can get this cool thing where both feet kind of have a little stumble and hit, like boom, right? And also it'd be cool if we ended in a pose where you could see both feet and they weren't completely on top of each other and side on to camera. So it was more pose to camera. Obviously this whole thing is going to be over here a bit more because we've done that earlier step. And that way none of this is going to overlap with, this either. Cool. Yeah, and then here, I like this bit of texture you got, so I think I won't say too much about it. I think that's cool. It's just that instant hit, boom, from the hit. Maybe this is too much, but over 2 frames maybe, you would go from this reversal to this reversal from the hit. So it hits and takes the hit in the spine, boom, and you got that ricochet in the spine. That's going to feel good. Nice, yeah. And I think maybe we can get a tiny bit of roll or something on this foot throughout this whole section. Might be cool. I haven't really thought of that, but that wasn't a pre-note. But a tiny bit of roll with the heel up, where he's balancing more on the toe here for that whole section, for this whole time that he's in this pose, I think could feel pretty cool. It could help that pose a bit. Shing. Cool, yeah. Anyway, just doodling. Cool. So I think that's all my main notes. I think I've covered everything that I've written down. Hopefully this format is a bit clearer because it's just me going note to note. I've already pre-planned and thought out. Let me know what you think. So the videos are a bit quicker and you can more easily get through them and just see the notes I'm giving you rather than me thinking through what notes to give you and all that whilst on the video. I think that's the way I'm going to be doing it from now on. Awesome. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions, any follow-ups, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next version. Good luck. End the video. Bye-bye.